The following video contains in-game spoilers for the game Stray, and is best viewed if you have already completed Stray. So, if you have already completed Stray, or just don't care about spoilers, well, sit back and enjoy, and thank you for watching. When I first started playing Stray, what I expected was a cute cat simulator where I could explore a beautifully created cyberpunk city, while doing everything that a cat loves to do, such as turning the world into my scratching post, knocking random stuff off of shelves, tripping anybody that refuses to acknowledge my very important presence, and creating a loyal cat-loving robo-simp army. What I did not expect was a game that is one part point-and-click adventure, one part trypophobia triggering horror, one part Metal Gear Solid Neko, all wrapped around a masterclass of environmental storytelling that delves deep into the psyche of what is hope in the human condition. Luring in players with a beautiful world and a unique fuzzy character to play as, Stray got people's attention very easily. Myself, and I'm sure plenty of others, always get intrigued when a game's protagonist is decidedly not human, and I feel a lot of creative limitations and expectations are removed in situations like this. And that's one of the joys of Stray. This is a world that is left open for the player to discover its secrets on their own, not barred by the main character's goals or motivations. This cat's objective is simple. They fell from their home into the depths of the city, and they need to get out. They are a stray, as the game's name would suggest. But the cat's not the only stray in town. Early on, you are saved by a handy little AI that calls itself B12, which just so happens to be my favorite vitamin, but also a name drop to the development studio. An assistant to a human scientist, you save it by placing it inside of a drone, freeing it from the server that it was trapped in for a very long time, and it quickly becomes a good friend to the cat, as well as becoming the second protagonist of this adventure. And honestly, I would consider B12 the main character of Stray, as while the cat is what the player controls directly and interacts with the world directly, most of the storytelling and the environmental impact is absorbed, processed, and directly affects B12, whose goal is, at this point, to simply absorb the world as it is now and find out what exactly happened to the humans. The cat still just wants to go home. Through this exploration, remnants of the human world left behind become apparent. Robots have taken the place of humans in the now sealed city after the world suffers some apocalyptic event. Before the humans died, they needed a way to dispose of their refuse, waste, and garbage. So they developed a bacteria that would break down organic matter. Introducing it into the sewer systems, the bacteria evolved and became a hostile force known as the Zurks, which now feast on any organic matter that they come across, as well as developing a taste for metal, which is not great for the robots. Eventually, the sealed-off vault was hit with a plague, and that's killed off every single one of the humans, leaving only the robots behind. And while a lot of bad was left over from humankind, it seems a lot of the good parts of humanity survived as well. The human condition has been adopted by the robots, taking on what seems to be full sentience. Some enjoy the fine arts, such as music and botany. Others have taken up crafts, like knitting. And others have become shop owners, running bars, restaurants, and clothing stores. And yes, most of the robots are interested in their fashion. And whether it was the intent of the humans they interacted with before, or their own free will acting, some of them are determined to open this vault back up to the outside, even if none of the robots have ever seen the outside before and only know of its existence through pictures and postcards. With this goal in mind, we end up reuniting a son with their father, who had went into the sewers and gotten trapped by the Zurks, unable to make it home. Out of gratitude for the rescue, and appreciation for reuniting the family, we're given a UV light that we can use to push through the sewers, and with an outsider at our back, we do just that. But this path is daunting, and although helping us through a majority of the sewers, the outsider knows that they will not be able to make it all the way through. But the hope that we carry, pushing through for them, is enough. That's right. Those robots have hope. And with a final push UV beam in hand, we do make it through the sewers, but not before we see the horrors that the humans really have laid upon this vault. They say when you stare into the abyss stares back, and just for a moment, B12 is captivated by the horrors that they witness. Hearing the cries from their companion, they snap out of it and rescue them, but not before the UV light overheats and explodes, leading them to a mad dash out of the sewers. A mad dash that they succeed in. Hope lives on, and this hope in something better outside is the driving force of Stray's narrative. We're getting into big spoiler territory now, so this is your last chance to duck out before I let the cat out of the bag, so to speak. Alright, here we go. Around the halfway point, B12 and the cat come across a pod, and the memories of B12's life flood back into it. It turns out that B12 was a human scientist. He watched as his friends and family all passed away, and in a moment of self-preservation, he used one of these pods to upload his consciousness digitally, effectively trapping himself for years, resulting in the amnesia that he suffers now. This revelation shakes up the entire story up until this point and shifts the perspective of future events of the game. We are now given two perspectives: the cat, which is an innocent bystander simply passing through, and of a human who failed the other humans and is partially responsible for the world being in the condition that it is in now. And now, they realize that they're all alone. Through the remainder of the game, the darker aspects of the human condition are on full display. Assuming the same position as the humans before them, the now robot-run Necocorp, while having a clever name, has bogarted the remaining power of the city, power that is needed to run the subway and get access to the outside. They are also acting as the police force in the upper city, a force that is not afraid of factory resetting its fellow robots, erasing any sentience they may have developed. Whether this was the practice that the humans did before that keep robots from gaining true sentience, or something that is developed in a post-human society, cruelty to one's own kind seems to be an evil that never truly dies. And this is where the duality of the split protagonist really struck home to me. B12 is put into a position, knowing the tragedy of the past, sorrow of not being able to prevent more tragedy, and the isolation of realizing that they are alone. Meanwhile, B12 gets to observe the cat, a cat who they have bonded with, and observed how they interact with the world. The cat doesn't see good or evil, and the cat doesn't express good or evil. The cat just exists. B12 then gets to see how the robots interact, not just with themselves and each other, but also with the cat, who by the end of the game, B12 is considering a very good friend. All of the positivity that the cat gives to the robots, all of the good that the robots are doing, and the society that has developed from the ashes of old, and the hope the robots have for a better tomorrow. This hope is what has pushed the outsiders this far. Hope is what has brought families back together. Hope was the guiding UV light through the Zerk-infested sewers. Hope was the tenacity that, after being captured for stealing that atomic battery, the idea of a better world outside was worth breaking out and making a run for. It's not that all of us has to get outside, but one of us has to. These are the last words Clementine the Outsider tells to us before driving off to distract the armed forces pursuing us. The last hope for the outsiders. And with that promise, B12 gives the last gift that a human can give to the world that they left behind, and makes a sacrifice in the name of hope, understanding that while the humans may be gone, humanity is still very much alive, and that even though there is still evil in this world, the good is there, and it's worth fighting for. With a final message to his friend, B12 uses the last of its power to open the way to the outside. As the rays of sunlight cascade down onto the city and its citizens for the first time, the Zerks dissolve, and the Stray says goodbye to its friend one final time before walking through the door. Finally, it's returned home. Stray is the kind of game I don't think people would have given the time of day if they hadn't been hooked in by the cat protagonist. And I'm not saying that as a detriment to the overall story writing or the game itself. If the game had simply just been B12, driving around the city, interacting with the robots, doing the same things that happen in this game, I still think something would have been missing. The duality of having the split protagonist, having that innocence to bounce off of in a world that at a lot of times is extremely bleak. The cat truly becomes a vessel of the good that can exist and the hope for this world moving forward. And it's no surprise to me that playing as a cat can be extremely fun. And the developers were aware of this and definitely leaned into everything that makes a cat an appealing pet, companion, and friend. And that makes the bond between the cat and B12 even stronger, because a lot of people can relate to their own pets in that instance. The constant comfort and joy that the cat brings also allows for B12 to be a more heavy emotional figure throughout the game. Bearing the weight of the last of humanity isn't a fun task and could have definitely put people off on the initial viewing of the game. So having the cat be there and be kind of a foil to the weight of that plot line, I feel like is extremely important. And speaking of that plot line, I do want to bring up one thing that I have seen going around the internet, where the common theory for this game is that all of humanity got uploaded into the robots. It's just been so long and they have all forgotten their prior life. This evidence is supported by there being several of these upload pods that you can find throughout the game. So it would reason that the technology to upload one's consciousness into robotic form would be something that would be more widespread than just the one scientist. And this is a perfectly valid theory, but one that I don't think has much heft to the overall story of the game. If the robots develop sentience on their own, then this is a new society moving forward. And if humanity did upload themselves into the robots, well, time has erased all of that. They aren't the humans that they once were. Through both scenarios, the same parts of humanity are left behind, just one in a more direct way and one in a more indirect way. And through both scenarios, B12 is still burdened with the knowledge of knowing the truth of the past. At the end of the day, everything that Stray has going for it works together perfectly to create a true masterpiece of storytelling in the modern age. And I'm sure this is a game that'll get replayed over and over in years to come. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit a like button and subscribe to the channel. We'll be doing a lot more content like this moving forward. But until next time, Tenna Crew, much love. Bye-bye.